What other wins do we have going on today, guys? Michael, unmute. Tell us what's happening.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
That's okay.
I did have a question for Google reviews. Has anyone found any validity to giving the customer a percentage discount or 10 or 20 bucks off their service in order to incentivize Google reviews? Or is it best just to train your technicians and your staff to be pushing and requesting and then following up with a text or email after the service is completed to try to obtain and get a higher rate of Google reviews?
Jordan, I saw your hand shoot up. Do you have a response to this?
Yeah, so we don't incentivize the customer, we incentivize our employees. And I got like a $500 worth of $10 gift cards to Home Depot or Walmart or whatever. And so each time a guy gets a review, we give him a $10 gift card. And then, so we were at like 170 at the beginning of May, or like towards the end of May. And I told the guys, I meant to say if we got it by the end of May, but it's going to extend through the end of June. If we get up to 200 by the end of June, then everybody gets a $100 bill. So it's like I'm incentivizing my guys, not the customers. I don't think there would be a problem, but I think I think if I were to do it with customers, I would do like a $10 rebate off your next service. I don't know.
Well, the advice that you're
found it
giving,
really messy, like changing costs right at the very end of a job. Even if it's like, hey, we've got to add a credit card percentage. If you're going to process a card, we got to add a percentage on. I found that really messy. So basically what we've done is just on the front end, we just assume every job has a 5% upcharge to cover financing or credit card percentage. And that way, if somebody, I found it easier just to have one cost higher up front than to try to go back and add like a 3% fee on the end of the bill. It just gets really messy, and not all the technicians are comfortable doing that. Someone's ready to pay, they hand you their card, and then all of a sudden you're like, hold on, I got to stop, change the bill. So to answer your question, Michael, we incentivize our employees, not the customer.
and we've found that actually results in typically more reviews than incentivizing the customer. Just because like this is a technician that already went above and beyond for you, you solved their problem. Now they're saying, hey, I've loved working for you today. One thing that would really help me out, in fact, there's a little bit of a competition at the office of who can get the most reviews, and I'll get a bonus if it's me. And so if I text you this link right here, would you be able to leave me a Google review? It would really help me out. And then you text them the link, and then you say, awesome, could you click on that link to make sure it works? Doing that, we've just seen it that customers feel more incentivized. It's easier, it's less messy, like Jordan was saying, and it incentivizes your team. So it's just positive all the way around. In the chat, and it's like you read my mind, because this was what I was going to mention that as well. Just don't post anywhere, like don't have it written down that you incentivize for reviews or give bonuses, whether that's to your team or if it's to the customer. Google does not like to know that you're paying for reviews, and so just make sure that it's verbally communicated. It's not necessarily documented anywhere, and you're totally in the clear. You're good to go. Great question and great feedback. What other questions do we have going on today? Bryce, do you want to elaborate on what you're putting in the chat here?
Sure. Yeah, I just saw Dale, I think, with Arnold's Plumbing, putting in a note of just kind of a learning, sort of newer trend. Something that we saw a lot last year, we tried to do with a couple of clients, was being able to put your Google business listing in a sponsored section of the Google business listings. which you can do. But what we found with tracking was when you did that, there was a lot of, for some reason, Spanish speakers that would call through the ad. And when we tracked specifically phone numbers, there were none that had turned into jobs. It did increase call volume for sure, but you don't want to just look at call volume. You want to see the value of those calls as well. So just something to be mindful of. I don't know why it was so prevalent with Spanish speakers, asking, do you speak Spanish, with the clients that we had run it with, and we're doing good tracking to see. And again, that may have changed, so worth trying, but we don't run those ads ourselves anymore because we didn't see that they were producing really well to actually bring in call volume. But that's that.
That's great feedback, Bryce. What Dale was actually talking about, and I'm going to share my screen here, is a little bit different. So did a quick search here for plumber Tulsa. Okay. This right here is Google Local Services. It's also known as Google Guaranteed. I think the majority of you are on here. You guys know what this is. This down here is Google AdWords. These are pay-per-click ads. What Dale ran into is when he was typing in Arnold's Plumbing OKC, which I just tried to type it in. I didn't get the same result as you did, Dale. But when he typed in, Arnold's Plumbing OKC, one of his competitors, AdWords, was popping up at the top of the search. And what that means is that competitor has chosen one of his keywords on his pay-per-click to be Arnold's Plumbing, because he wants to try to capture Dale's audience. Now, that's really shitty and really shady. It's not something that we recommend doing. It's something that a lot of people do. The good news is that most people, if they're directly searching for Arnold's Plumbing, like, they're going to bypass that ad and go down to Arnold's Plumbing, so it's not something that you can necessarily do anything about. And it's not something to be super concerned with. Going back to kind of Bryce's advice here, pay-per-click ads is something that we do, but it's not something that we necessarily recommend. I can't even name one of my clients that I think we're doing pay-per-click with right now. It's just not something that we recommend. It's very costly, and we just don't see very good results. We'd much rather see you put your marketing dollars towards meta ads, which we see a lot better results with, or with Google Local Services, which is by far a better producer. So just wanted to elaborate a little bit on that. It definitely is kind of shady, Dale. And I think you have every right to be like, that competitor is kind of an ass. I think we can say that. Yeah.
One thing I would add in there, though, is if you are running pay-per-click Google ads with this, or even somebody else, if you see that one of your keywords is your business name, you're like, well, why the heck am I paying for ad space that is my business's name? It's to make sure that you are the one that is showing up even in that ad space for your business name. Because I know when we ran Google pay-per-click before, it's called a branded search, right? And so when people search your name, there's still value in making sure that you are occupying all of the spots, so that Steve's Plumbing Service can't show up when Arnold's Plumbing is showing up, if that makes sense. So that's a question I've gotten whenever people are running Google pay-per-click. Why is my business name a keyword? My business should already show up, but that can make sure that you're the one that's occupying that spot.
You can do the same thing with Google Local Services. If you guys look at your profile and budget inside of Google Local Services, you'll see a little switch, which I'm going to and show you guys. You'll see a little switch that says keep branded searches on. What that means is if somebody searches for your company, let's say Arnold's Plumbing, your Google Local Services will still have a chance of showing up for you. And we would recommend that. Again, it's just, solidifying dominance. I'll show you guys what that looks like. If you're in your profile and budget, it's this direct business search button. You would just want to make sure that that one's selected. I know we kind of got into the weeds there. Any questions? Philip, I see your response here. What if we're not getting results from Google Local Services ads? I think that's a great question to ask. Few different things to look at, and I'm going to just share my screen again. One, how your Google local services ads rank is going to be pretty primarily dependent on how many Google reviews that you have. So if your competitors have more Google reviews than you, then they're probably going to rank higher than you. Is a good rule of thumb. So continuing to get reviews on your Google business listing will absolutely help your Google local services ranking as well. We also want to use your budget to increase and decrease the amount of call volume that you want. For this client here, they're not interested in getting a ton of calls right now, so we've got a super low budget. I'd rather have a client have a super low budget than pause their ad, because when you turn the ad back on, it's going to hurt your ranking. And so I'd rather you kind of use the budget to manipulate your call volume compared to turning on and off the ad. If your competitor has a higher budget than you, they're probably going to rank higher than you. And so I just really encourage increasing your budget until you're getting the call volume that you want. With Google local services, a lot of my clients have like a $5,000 a week budget, and most of my clients spend around $2,000 to $3,000 per month on Google local services. So just know that just because you have a high budget, I have a gutter guy who has a $99,000 a week budget on Google local services, and he spends around $3,000 per month. It's just not possible. And so just have that confidence that increasing your budget, all that's going to do is increase your ranking. It doesn't mean you're going to spend that weekly budget. Another thing that you can do, make sure to add some photos to your profile or send photos to us, and we'll optimize them and upload them to your Google local services as well. We also just want to look at your service area. Want to make sure that any areas you want to do work in are selected. Any areas you don't want to do work in are not selected. If you have any duplicate areas, that can hurt your ranking as well. So if you have like a county selected, then a town in that county, it will show up as duplicate. So just make sure if you're just doing towns, stick with towns, or stick with zip codes, or stick with counties so you don't get those duplicates. Now, if I have a client who's not showing up on Google local services at all, the first thing I'm going to check is their business verification. You see that I just found that here by clicking the button. You want to make sure that you are 100% verified. We have a member of our team, Caden, who works directly with Google local services. If you're running into any issues with getting an insurance pushed through or anything, let us know so we can get you connected with him so we can call on your behalf, get that taken care of for you. So just make sure you're 100% verified. I know I just threw out a lot of information. Last thing I'll go over here is just your leads. You want to make sure that you don't have any leads that are sitting in your new and active tabs. Any leads that come in, we want to make sure that we're marking them as booked, completed, or archived as quickly as possible. If you're just letting leads sit in Google local services, they're thinking you're not doing anything with them, and they will penalize your ranking because of it. Also, you're probably losing money if you're doing that, because you're probably getting charged for leads that you shouldn't, and you're not disputing them. So all of those factors kind of come into ranking. If you are doing all of those things and you're still not showing up, it's just a matter of you need to get more reviews. Your competition is just steep, and you've got to get more reviews. Any questions on that, Philip? Is it clear as mud, or got comments?
Answer the phone.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's great. No, yeah, I think one of the issues, we haven't been archiving our ads, so maybe that'll help.
Yep.
Or our leads.
Take care of those leads, especially when you first get on Google local services. You kind of get an influx. It's like they kind of test you out and they send a bunch of calls. And if you don't nurture those calls well, if you're not answering the phone, if you're not moving them over, we kind of see people's rankings suddenly. So
for sure,
get in there.
Cool.
If you have any questions when it goes to like rating the leads or anything like that, just reach out to your coach. You know, we can absolutely help.
Yeah, because we've been rating our leads, but we haven't been archiving. So we should definitely archive them if they're like, rating submitted and then archive kind of deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing that I want to just put in the chat here, because I've had a few clients running into this recently, is sometimes Google Ads, so your Google Ads account, will want you to verify with them. This is separate from your verification with Google Local Services. So if I have a client who's 100% verified in Google Local Services and they're just not showing up, not getting leads, I'm going to have them log into their Google Ads account to see if Google Ads is asking for any extra type of verification. Because if they are, you're going to want to go through that verification in order for your Google Local Services ads to continue to run and run well. Sometimes they will completely shut down your opportunity to advertise if you don't do this verification. And so that's kind of my last resort when I'm with a client who's like doing all the right things and they're still not ranking well, is like, hey, let's look at your Google Ads account and just see if like something's flagged. Also, if you were seeing that you were getting charged for pay-per-click ads and you're like, I don't know what these are. What are these pay-per-click leads? It's very easy to accidentally run pay-per-click ads. They kind of can trick you into it. And so if you log in through this link, it will show you if you're running any pay-per-click ads accidentally, and you can shut down those campaigns. I recently had 2 clients that we discovered that with, and I was like, whoa. Let's shut those down. So kind of a last resort thing to look into is your ads account needing some extra verification. Philip.
One question I had was when we get charged for leads, so we'll rate the lead and say, it wasn't a proper lead or it wasn't a service we provide. And sometimes they'll charge us anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to dispute that?
Yeah. So if it's like Philip, if you're like, hey, this was like a total missed call. I didn't even speak to anybody, or this is somebody like I'm a plumber and they're asking about their car, and they need a car mechanic. Like if it's just like wildly, we should not have gotten charged for this lead and you still did even after disputing it, let Caden know, give him the phone number, so he can know which lead that it is so that he can call Google and just ask. Sometimes it can be a mistake. If you call Google, sometimes it can change the result of that. What we really, really encourage is so Jordan, I see your comment. You can dispute leads. It just looks different. It's called rating a lead. It's just no longer a dispute button. It's a rate button, and it works the same way. You just rate it super low. You explain why, and then you submit it, and you can get your credit back. So it just looks different, but it works the same. What I really encourage is if you do get a call that's out of your service area or not a good call, you need to shut that down very quickly. Like in your communication, you say, hey, that is not a service we provide. We cannot help you. If you try to help that lead in any way or entertain it, Google's going to say, absolutely, you deserve to get charged for that lead. So we don't need to be rude to people, but we just need to make sure that in that call recording, it is very clear that that is not something that we do, because that will work in your favor.
Yeah, I think one in particular, we were trying to help this lady that had a small scope that was too small for us. We were like, hey, we can give you somebody to reach out to. And then we ultimately got charged for that lead.
Yeah, and that's a great example of one that Google's going to make the case. Well, oh, maybe you work with this other company, or maybe you get they're going to say you entertained it.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is upsetting. It's like, I'm just trying to help this person and I'm getting charged for it. But
yeah.
Google's doing their job. So
cool. Thank you.
Yes. What other questions do we have? Concerns, thoughts, grievances? 4th of July plans?
I'm just curious if I'm the local service ad guinea pig, because when I first came to you guys, ours was just not performing at all, and it's taken a long time of consistency to get it to where it's actually starting to perform again. We had months we were lucky to get 1 or 2 calls. And so all the things that you talked about this morning, of course, we started doing it. It took a lot of patience from me, because I'm like, when's this going to kick in? And the last couple months, So we have two. We have one that's tied to our Mount Juliet location, and then we have one that's tied to our Nashville location. And something Travis and I discovered, was it a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I don't know, that since we have two LSA, we had Nashville customers calling on our Mount Juliet one because we have more reviews on our Mount Juliet location, even though we have an LSA in Nashville. So what you're saying about like the reviews and how well the LSA ad performs is very true.
Yeah. And appreciate you being patient, Jordan, because it really does take time. You could still be doing all the right things and not ranking as well as you would like to. And a lot of it is just you've got to just be consistent and continue to get reviews. There's no trick or hack. Trust me, if there was, we'd be doing it because it would make our jobs a lot easier. But just be consistent,
and
be patient with it.
That's starting to uptick though. I mean, I think we're getting between 6 and 8 calls now. So it's like we went from nothing to consistently getting that number. And I haven't checked this last week, but I suspect that's up from there potentially even.
Yeah. Yeah. Dale, I saw your hand up, sir. What's happening?
Well, I have a question. It's on a little bit different of a topic.
That's fine.
I've got a couple of really good plumbers who are leaders, and we decided to change the way we were paying, and we were paying them hourly, and we changed to a commission. And I have really seen a great increase in the amount of sales that they're producing each week. I really like it for that reason.
Yeah.
It frees me up a little bit, you know, when somebody's on a commission, I'm only paying them when they're producing. But we've encountered a couple of issues with it, and I was just wondering if there's anyone else that's doing anything similar to this and how they address these problems. If you have a job that you've got a guy on and you're paying him a percentage of what he's bringing in, if you have to throw additional labor at that job because the job, you know, increased or whatever, then how do you figure how you're going to pay somebody? You know, if you start throwing a bunch of labor in it and you're paying a guy a percentage of that total take on the job, there goes your profit. You know, he'll eat it right up by throwing that additional labor at it. And then the other thing that we seem to find is, what do you do if you have a callback and you've got that technician already scheduled for something? I mean, when you're paying on a commission basis and you're paying out big money like that, they need to run their own callbacks. They've already been paid for it. So what we do, and I'm wondering if anyone has any better ideas, because I sure got open ears about it, but what we do is, if the technician's already scheduled, we make them go out after hours and take care of that call, so that we don't make our customers wait until that guy's free. It's not their fault that we're busy. And that's kind of our way of kind of punishing the guy a little bit for having a call back and not being thorough on the job when he was there the first time. But I'm just wondering if anybody else deals with that and what their solutions are to these problems.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, for sure.
Love it.
So one of the things that I do is train my guys that if you need extra labor to do the job, you need to be factoring that into your quote. And secondly, they know that if it's like a helper or an hourly guy that's coming to help them, that whatever their hourly rate is that they're being paid comes out of their gross revenue number. So let's say they bid a job that's $3,000 and they needed an extra hand, and you pay him $20 an hour if he works an 8-hour day. You take $160 out of their gross commission number, or their gross revenue number. That way they know, okay, I need to be like accounting for that extra labor that we need. So that kind of fixes that problem for us. And then as far as callbacks go, we recently implemented a callback policy that they either would only get paid minimum wage to go back, or not paid at all And I've also let them know that it would be at inconvenient times mostly, because we're not going to punish the customer for something we probably should have checked or done when we were already there. You know, an extra 5 minutes to go and plug something you unplugged, turn a breaker back on, which I know you're plumbing, but same thing, checking a faucet or whatever it is, you know, just go check it. The extra 5 minutes is worth a lot more than spending 2 hours of your own time driving, you know, to a place that you probably should have done it in the first place. And so I was concerned I'd have a little bit of pushback, but I have found that most of the guys who are good at commission work are also fairly understanding people, and they're like, yeah, I mean, I get that. If I should have done that, like, that's on me. So I haven't really had any pushback at all on that whatsoever.
Great advice. Dale, do you have any kind of feedback on that or
Yeah, kind of
elaboration?
what I was talking about, like the job increasing and needing additional laborers. Like, for instance, we had a guy that was replacing a few drains, cast iron drains and a floor. Jackhammered the floor up. Turns out the drains are just shot and there's nothing to tie onto. So now the job went from a 2-day job to a 6-day job. We're completely replumbing the house. And the guy's already scheduled for other things the following week. And so I'm having to move stuff around, and those are jobs he sold. So that's kind of cutting into his money. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying to figure out how to pay that guy fairly. It's not his fault that the job did that, but I'm having to throw additional labor at it. And I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to handle the situation like that. It gets kind of complicated.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Just some camaraderie. Like, I'm dealing with the exact same thing. I just brought a guy up here from Louisiana for a job. I mean, and his first job that he came up here for. I was basically like, look, we've got a new construction house that's starting. It's got a great price. It's a custom home. You've got a week to knock out the roughing. And we're in the same situation where there's been 19 change orders on the job, plus maybe more. And on top of it, like, he just, maybe houses just staying his thing. I don't know, but like, we're at a situation now where we're like at the end of week 2, and you know, I'm like, do I throw more labor? And I think my solution for it, which is probably the worst one, and what Nicole's probably going to shake her head at me for, is like, I'm just going to have to step up, and like, it's supposed to be 100 degrees this weekend here in Nebraska, and like, I'm going to have to work all weekend to try to catch that job up. And it's like, I'm sending him pictures of like what the rough-in portion of his commission would be on this job. And I'm like, dude, at the end of 2 weeks, like, there ain't no money left for you, dude. Like, I feel bad for him, you know, like, you just drove all the way up here from Louisiana to work. It's your first 2 weeks, and like, you're already out of money on the job. So it's like, I can't throw another guy where we're doing commission, you know, a top percentage off gross revenue. I can't throw another guy at the job, because what am I going to pay him? And so it's like an all around bad situation. I get that too. Me and Stacy have really been trying to wrap our heads around how to do this effectively. You know, I've got another guy, and a lot of this stuff, unfortunately for us in the growing pains, is like, a lot of this stuff was previously bid out work that now we've entered into this commission system, and the guys are not able to get work that was previously bid done in an effective way where they're feeling like they could get a commission away. And they're all saying, well, I would have bid it for more. I would have bid it for more. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But so there's that. I mean, I totally get it. We're struggling through it as well. So when you figure it out, let us know. The only thing I can think of is, if it's your job, it's your job. And if you can't cut it, then you don't have a position at my company. And I don't like to have that attitude with people, but in my opinion, if you're going to spend at this point more than 2 weeks roughing in a house, I don't know what else you want from me, you know? My solution with this one particular guy is I've asked him, hey, if we were to pay you hourly, what would that rate be? It just take him off commission and just put him back to hourly. And then, you know, just kind of see how things go with them. And he might have been a bad fit, you know? Sometimes I get excited and I went on a hiring spree, hired like 3 guys, and turns out that maybe 1 out of the 3 is worth keeping, you know? And I just let a guy go yesterday, which was really tough because he was a good producer. He just had extracurricular stuff outside of work that he couldn't figure out. So yeah, I woke up this morning at 4 from anxiety. By 5, I had puked from anxiety. So, I mean, I get it, man. It's tough. And this just been a rough month for us at our company. Not like necessarily dollar wise, but just trying to implement so many changes. So yeah.
Yeah. Dale, I saw your hand go up. You've got feedback?
Well, I was just going to say, he made a comment about something Jordan did that I've actually said to the guys. You know, they stepped into some big man shoes wanting to be on a commission, and you know, they're doing some pretty big man stuff. So I feel like they need to put on their big man underwear and suck it up. You know, you're getting paid big money to do these things, and you know, yeah, it's a problem. And what you're going to have to probably do is lose one of your jobs because you underbid something or you underestimated it, and now it's mushroomed on you. And you know, and it that doesn't make people happy, but you know, at the end of the day, I just really don't see any other way it can be handled.
Yeah, and one thing just within in the chat, and Rick, I saw your hand go up, so you might be wanting to elaborate on this, but one thing that Rick put in the chat, and I just want to clarify it for everybody, is once we get into the job, if the scope of work changes for something that was unforeseen, like if it's like, hey, this job, by looking at it at ground level, we thought it was going to take 2 days, and now we're in it and it's taken 6. We're going to go back to the owner and we're going to say, hey, this is what's going on. This is a new price and timeline. And in that case, that's really not going to penalize you, or is it going to penalize your guy, you know, because now he's still going to be able to make a commission on that job, you know, because we're changing the estimate and scope. The only downside of that is now you are having to push back that guy's jobs out 6 days, you know, which is a challenge for the office manager, but something to navigate through, and it does just happen. So the only time that like the price shouldn't change for the owner is when we effed up. You know, we did something wrong. It's on us. You know, that's the only time that we should necessarily be eating that. Rick, I saw your hand go up. I don't know if it's on the same topic, but would love for you to elaborate.
Well, that was my question. We're not quite on the solely commission pay. We're not 100% sold. We're trying to figure out how to get the guys from, you know, hey, you're making us hourly rate now, and next week you're not going to make nothing unless you sell. So, but my question was, you know, if we go in and we're plumbers, so if we go in and the drain job goes south and the whole line is bad, I would just, my question would be, how do you penalize the plumber if he didn't realize that the whole drain was bad? The job grows, so does his commission. Is that not right?
No, that's correct, Rick, because that's something that's out of his control. So like he's not getting punished for it. The only time that he would get punished for that if he did not stop work, go back to the homeowner and change the estimate and timeline, because that's on him. Like if he doesn't do that, now he should be penalized because that is a F up on his part. And so we just need to train them of, hey, when a change order, everything until we get a new agreed upon price and timeline that matches the new scope of work. Dale, do you have feedback on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, no, for us, it's really not that so much as it's the time constraints. When he's already got other jobs booked up for the next week, and now this job is going for a 2-day job to now a 10-day job. And, so what we normally would do is we just throw other guys at it, get that job knocked out so that everything falls back in line with the schedule. And when you got a guy that's getting paid like that on a commission, he don't want you to do that because that's getting into his money. But then he doesn't want, and that's the problem. You can't be two places at once.
All right.
And so what I end up having to do is I either throw a bunch of people at that job and get it knocked out so that we can meet our schedule to the other customer or customers, or we reschedule all that other stuff. And sometimes that gets really tough because we stay about a month out. And when you're staying that far out, now you're telling somebody, hey, it's going to be 2 months and I'll get out there and replace your sewer line that ain't working.
Mm-hmm.
And, you just lose the job. And so that's the struggle that I'm trying to figure out how to handle that. And I just thought maybe you guys somebody had run into that and could kind of educate me how to handle it.
So I run a predominantly sewer company, and you just got to find good subs. So that way, as soon as you get overbooked or you get behind schedule, you get whatever, something like that, you basically just dump it to a sub. You might not make as much profit, but you take a lot less liability, and we're making 40% on all those jobs.
Yeah, and kind of along those lines, Dale, like your top priority is going to be the company and the customers. Of course, like our team matters to us. I'm not saying that the team doesn't matter. By the time they wrap up that 10-day job, we're going to have more work for them. It's not like rescheduling those jobs or giving those jobs to somebody else means that next week they're going to have no jobs. That's not the reality. Like they're going to have more jobs. And so I just think that you just build their confidence in that of like, hey, I know that I'm now moving these jobs and giving these jobs to somebody else. I will have work for you when you're done with this job. Like you will have that opportunity. And so your priority though has to be towards getting the jobs done in a timely manner, serving the customers well. Because if we start pushing people back months, we're going to lose them. And so whether that means we need to hire somebody else, get another truck going, or if we can find a reliable sub, that would probably be the best solution.
The other thing that you can look at if you're having to put other people on jobs that this guy sold is you can still give him a smaller commission for having made the sale. And then whatever's left over from that, they get for completing the work, if that makes sense. So I don't know what your percentage is, but he could get 3 or 4% for having made the sale. He's still really well compensated for having gone out there, quoted the work, that sort of thing, right? And then the installers, they didn't have to mess with any of the sale or the diagnostics or anything else. All they got to show up is do the plumbing, right? And they're still getting well compensated for that. So that might be a good, potential solution. That solves kind of both sides of it. He can stay on that job, finish it up. You can move those other jobs to your techs that have availability to do so, and just kind of split up the commission a little bit that way, and your cost doesn't really change.
Love that, Travis. Didn't think of that. Jordan, thoughts?
Yeah, Dale, is your commission in any way capped?
You're muted, Dale.
Yeah, it's a straight percentage. I have one guy that's at 20 and one that's at 23. I pay them that straight off the top of the job. Which is a lot. It's expensive.
I mean, so they're basically incentivized then to, I mean, that might be a way you could go back to them is tell them, hey, look, you're going to make 20% based on whether you work 100 hours this week or 40 hours this week. Why don't you just treat this as a week where you're going to pay for the winter vacation and just, work every hour the sun's up and get these. And then once we're caught up, we'll be caught up, I mean, that would be potentially a way you could, just focus on, hey, this is going to be a great week for you if you work 6 hours on this drain and then go and work another, knock the small ones out, the 4-hour ones out, after work, and just plan on each day being a 7 o'clock day, 8 o'clock day where you get off. We're still going to compensate you for each of them hours, or each of them jobs.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
Chris, I've seen your hand up for a little bit now. Do you have feedback, thoughts?
Sorry, it was in reference to something you said, Nicole, with regards to if it's not your mess up, the customer should be paying for it. Like, if it's something that's a surprise that you didn't plan for or didn't scope or whatever. I have just typically found it very difficult for us to go back to the customer and get them okay with it. They may end up paying it. They may not pay it, or they may ask for a, hey, let's agree to disagree. We'll split it 50-50 type of thing. Even if it's not our mess up, even if it says in our contracts, there may be changes. This is the charge that you may be charged if this comes up, that we'll discuss with you before we ever swing a hammer on it. We have just found, even if we do that, customers sometimes get very upset. I'm kind of wondering what should be changed. Like, it's in our contracts. It says there could be surprises. It's in, we talk about it. We don't do the work before we get approval, all that type of stuff. But yet, I have conversations kind of regularly with customers that say, oh, we chose you because we thought this is the price we were getting. We had other bids and they're more expensive, and now you're the same price as the other guys. And, we're not happy with this because, it goes down that not a good, conversation that you like to have. And I feel bad that we have to charge them more, but it's reality. There's stuff that we didn't scope. It's clearly not written down. I can document it and say, look, this is clearly different than what we intended, planned for, or anything. What's a better way to go about that so they're not so get a bad taste in their mouth because they have to pay a few $100s extra?
Yeah. I see hands going up. Rick, do you have feedback on this?
I was in landscaping for 20 years before I got into plumbing, electric, and air. What I would tell my customers is, hey, this is what we think that we can do it for. And in landscaping, doing drainage work, you never know what's up under there. Same thing with plumbing. You don't know what's under that floor. And so, or the ground. So what I would do is I would tell them, say, look, if there's something major, if it's something minor, we're going to keep it at this. But if there's something major that we can't foresee, then, kind of like great examples, Dale's drainage, all of a sudden the whole lines were rotted out. If that's something, I always try to tell them, hey, this could go up, but just as soon as it does, we're going to stop and let you know. We're going to have pictures. We're going to, all of this. If it's something you can see, then there shouldn't be no surprises to the client. But if you're digging and you're, something you cannot see, I would always approach it like that. Is the way we've done it. Is, hey, this could go south because we're digging and we don't see stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't struggled with the don't see stuff. People seem to be understanding of that. I mean, that's no big deal. It's just the nuances of all the other stuff that may come up. They perceive as, hey, we weren't expecting to pay extra, but I perceive for example, clients don't necessarily choose their composite color that when we contract for a deck board job, for a deck. They don't choose
quickly, Chris,
Yep.
Do you have a detailed change order policy that goes over the different types of change orders? And do we go over it with the customer before we start jobs?
We discuss it briefly, like it's in the contract. So there is a section in the contract that has it, and we discuss it briefly, but maybe we need to do it extremely more thoroughly, like even on little jobs, like even little ones that were like, this is just a few $100 job, but sometimes that comes into play. But yeah.
You're totally right. Where it just needs when you feel like you are over communicating, go a little bit further. It enough, like You got to have a detailed change order policy that goes over the different types of change orders, the we effed up change orders, the scope of work change orders, the you change your mind change orders, the once we got into the job and we started picking out materials type of change orders, you know, like we need to have, and we have a detailed change order policy that you could totally edit, Chris, but we've got to go over how that change order policy works, have them sign and agree to it. I almost like to have the change order policy separate from the contract, or just to emphasize like the importance of it and going over it individually. And if you set that expectation in the beginning, because for any construction job, change orders are going to happen. I don't care if you're a plumber, landscaper, or modeler. It's going to happen. The scope of work is going to change. The price is going to change. We've just got to make sure to set that expectation before we start work. And if we do that, I'm not saying people are going to be happy when they have to spend more money, but they might be more understanding.
The other thing that I would say, Chris, for the people that say they went with you because you were less than another contractor, now you're the same price, you can tell them, say, hey, we still are, because that contractor was quoting a higher price or the same price that we're quoting you now, but they would have ran into the same issue and had to come back and increase their price just like we're having to
100%.
do. There's no way for anybody to have seen this. So we're still cheaper than they would have been to do the same project because they would have been in the same position.
Right.
Yeah. Never a fun conversation no matter what. But those checks and balances make it a little bit easier. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you guys do that commission based? So are those guys basically like employees and they get paid like per job?
So that's a great question, Pat. We are out of time here today. We're 2 minutes over, and so what I'd recommend is going to the group chat and asking that and getting feedback, or talking to your coach about it. I think Dale, you're in that group chat, and you could answer that question for him if he puts that in there. But I know Dale's our employees, specifically. So,
okay,
guys, great questions, great feedback. I know we're 2 minutes over, but just a little announcement here. Next Wednesday, we will be having a workshop for cost plus pricing. Not only is it going to cover cost plus, but just how to, as a contractor, have better cash flow, especially for contractors that tend to have longer jobs. You know, is this relevant to service guys? Absolutely. But specifically for ones where, you know, you're dealing with jobs that can go a little bit longer. We're going to be sending out the sign up link for that call in an email along with the details here this week, hopefully by end of day today. But just wanted to let everybody know that's going to be Wednesday from 3 to 5. Central Time. So if you want to go ahead and block out that time in your calendar, if that's something that you're interested in, and then we will send that out. So you guys can sign up for anybody who's interested. And then, of course, we'll have group coaching like normal on Thursday. So if you have any questions, feel free to book laser calls with your coaches, ask them in the group chat, and then we will see you all next Thursday.